Great. Welcome to another episode of the O Ship Show. We're streaming live, testing the bounds of technology every day. We're trying to make sure we can always get this thing working right. Learning a lot every week from our new episodes, having our own O Ship moments as we kind of master all the fun with getting these things working, bringing in guests from all around the world in the US. We've got a really, really great guest today, but I want to set a couple of little ground rules to make sure we have the best possible experience. For starters, if you want to follow us on any of our social profiles, you can find us at O Ship Show on Instagram, O Ship Show on Twitter, O Ship Show on Facebook. And if you want to follow me or connect with me personally on LinkedIn, you can find me at linkedin.com/IN/Freddie Laker. One of the things we really wanted to stress is that you can ask questions. So we're doing our best to monitor chat. We've got some people behind the cameras who are also monitoring the chat, trying to make sure that things pass back to us as quickly as possible. So you've got questions, smart questions, dumb questions, bad questions, good questions, funny questions. We don't really care. Send them over. We'd love to hear what you're thinking about. We're going to do our best to answer them if they make sense and we've got enough time. Now, that all being said, I'd love to connect you with a very good friend of mine, Sean Finnegan, also one of the co-founders of Chameleon Collective. So we're beyond being good friends. We also do a lot of business together. Sean is a really dynamic individual, to put it nicely. He's had some incredible roles in the professional world. He was the CEO of Omnicom Media's digital group at one point. He was the chief digital officer of Publicis Starcom's Media Vest group at another point. So he's done some really great things in the agency and consulting and media world. He's also actually done a lot of work as an entrepreneur as well, which is how he and I became friends. So whether he's been advising startups or founding his own companies, which he's had a couple successful exits over the years, he's really got the same masochistic appreciation for starting businesses that I do. And beyond that, he makes for a heck of a good drinking buddy with some good stories. So I couldn't think of a better guest to have on the second live stream episode of O Ship. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks for having me. I think I look a little pixelated.
This is the perfect O Ship moment because you look insane, crazy with some little pixelation issues there. But this is living the O Ship lifestyle, Sean. I appreciate you embracing that.
I look how I feel. This is great.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, anyway. Sean, one of the things I just had to call out about you, which I think is great. I'll tell you what, if you could refresh your browser, you should it should give you a more solid connection. And while Sean's trying to reconnect and I'm doing my best to stall, I have to share a couple of little embarrassing things about him. There we go, Sean, looking sharp now, looking sharp. This I think is kind of amazing, actually. So you're an inductee into the American Advertising Hall of Fame. You an advertising age media maven. You were a Media Week media all-star at one point. My personal favorite is Min Magazine's Most Intriguing People. I'm not actually sure I even know what Min Magazine is, but I will fully support their decision to list you as the most intriguing person.
To make that point.
You didn't make that one up? Okay, just checking. So, Sean, the premise of the show is talking to people about some of the failures that they've had, or certainly what I like to describe as O Ship moments, things that didn't go as planned, things weren't expected, for better or worse. And I believe that great leaders and great entrepreneurs are really made by the moments where they've failed and then found ways to either learn from that and use that for future success, or frankly, just to help them be better human beings. And so I think there's plenty of shows out there which talk to people and us and the same old stories about those moments we all know about. But I like hearing about the moments other people haven't heard about. And so I'd love to, maybe even starting in the earlier parts of your career, is there any, kind of real O Ship moments that just kind of pop into your head?
If we're going to talk about my failures, this is going to be probably your
2-hour show.
It would be a mini clip. But, I've had a lot of fun in my career, over 25 years, and all in the digital space. So the old man of the sea, and as it relates to online. And over the time, and starting in media buying, starting at BBDO back in '94, in being in the seat where you're doing the media investing, you tend to meet people that at the very early arc of their careers and of the build of their companies, and before they go galactic, before they become these superstars, et cetera. And over time, over the platforms that we've seen, from AOL when that was as hot as TikTok is today, to Netscape, and then the rise of Google and more. There's been some companies like Amazon and Google and even Facebook where I was having conversations about joining them. Early days, like having Sergey Brin and Mark Zuckerberg and Bezos in your office talking. Did I go out again?
Yeah, it's fine. Keep going.
Is this a filter? Is this like it doesn't like what I'm saying? And this is crazy. Do you want me to reboot again?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. We'll see if we have better luck. And if so, we may just try this again. And I'll put this in the blooper reel of Oh Ship moments. It's going to be some irony of having a web show called Oh Ship, and it goes to ship.
Right. Here I am. Okay. All right. So, and over the course of that time, I was basically offered to come in or interview, et cetera, to these companies, and I turned them all down wisely. And I tell my children this, and they're like, "Well, wait, if that would have happened, would we have these kind of cars and boats, et cetera?" So, hindsight's 2020. It's a little bit of lottery talk. Certainly have a wake of companies from the dot-com era to everything since that, and a whole bunch of people that didn't do well, companies that didn't make it over the line, et cetera. But it's been fun to look back at that and think, wow, what if I would have I remember the Amazon thing. I remember working at APL, and there Jeff Bezos' brother, Mark Bezos, worked there. And I remember having a conversation with him about him leaving the company to go work at his brother's firm. And I thought, there are bookstores on every block. I don't know what you're doing, but good luck with your career. And then with Google, I had an interview. I sat down with Sergey Brin back in 2000 with Tim Armstrong, of course. And this is when Google was so early. They had, that like Regis space, the bad WeWork, or maybe it's a good WeWork now, but where they were up in the 50s in Midtown Manhattan, and it was just me and Sergey. And I remember he had this like blue acrobatic shirt on, and I'll never forget it. And I remember he asked me a question. He said, I'm an engineer, you're in advertising, you and Tim are. What do you think it's going to take to be successful for Google, and as it relates to marketing and sales? And I said, well, for salespeople, I've seen your background. You have multiple advanced degrees from Stanford, et cetera. You just need to hire a bunch of C students from state schools, and they'll get it done for you. And I remember his answer. He just said, "I do not like that answer." So from there, I decided to move back to Chicago.
Oh my God! I have to ask. It's a funny thing that sometimes when I meet friends who've been around the block and had some interesting opportunities pop up in front of them, and if you sometimes list this as like one of their regrets. I had a early person at Facebook that I kind of regret not taking on some level. But do you think is there any way to actually spot these things? I mean, sometimes on those ship, I like to people go, okay, hey, that you hit the wall on that one. Wasn't a great moment. Wasn't a great day. What did you learn from it? And so I think beyond learning that you can stay up at night dreaming of the regrets. Is there some way you could have gone back in time? Like, would there have been a way to have identified that, or do you think at the end of the day, some of these really these unicorn startups, just a lot of people just they had such incredible foresight that it's hard not to feel you don't feel bad because they really were looking at this at a level that none of us were capable of looking at the time, if that makes sense.
Yes and no, I don't think so at all. I think that people, no disrespect to my friends that were at these companies that did go galactic, but by and large, they're very smart people, but they had no idea either. And there's some people that got onto these trains and they took off, and suddenly retroactively they became these visionaries, and they were incredibly smart and had the foresight. But no, I don't think so. I think that if I were to go back and make the same decisions, I would have probably done the same thing. Or if I joined a couple, they probably wouldn't have done well just by the law of percentages.
Maybe. I don't want to get into too much juicy gossip because I try and respect the privacy of my friends. But one of my favorite people that I've had the pleasure of getting to know over my life is happened to be the 13th employee at Google, and he came in as a kind of an upper mid-level guy on the kind of business development side of things. And I was at his house once, and he showed the business card for Google was pinned up on the corkboard. And I don't know if you remember those business cards they used to have where it was from HP, and you print them and they had the perforated edges, and you'd literally pull the business cards out. And the original Google business cards, he had like the printer perforated edge Google business card. And they showed me, I was like, oh my God, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. He goes, oh, you gotta see the original business plan. And he showed me one of the first original business plans to raise money on it. And it's hard not to look back at that and go, it's just incredible where they made it. I mean, the pitch was basically, hey, people are gonna use the internet, and it hadn't invented AdWords and any of that stuff yet. And it was like, and we're gonna sell advertising. And it was just like one chart on one thing was like, the chart doing this, and then the next line was like, we're gonna sell advertising, revenue is gonna do this, and it was like, please give us some money. Apparently some people did, and that worked out pretty well for them. So, that's pretty wild.
To my Google story, I had declined to pursue it, but then my admin at the time, this was around the .com bust, she decided to join Google, and she stayed with them for, I think, about 15 years. Now, I never saw any sort of commission check on anything from that lead, but she did very well. So that was, you just never know. By the way, I also heard a story of those early days that when Eric Schmidt joined, that he actually wanted to disband the advertising portion to it. He wanted to take it and just discard it altogether, if you can imagine that.
Looks like you turned his opinion around on that one. Hey, you mentioned earlier that you went through the phase of some of these earlier companies, and then you ended up moving to Chicago. If I remember correctly, you've actually told me you've moved back there twice. Why did you do that again?
I don't know. Well, I'm from here, originally. This is where I live now.
I'm cold right now. That's my city.
Yeah. Well, that's why I put on my Midwestern fighting weight as well, just to stay fit. But after the first time, I started my career in New York, '93, and then full time '94, and after the bust, and I just had, I had an opportunity to move back to Omnicom, and from BBD back into what eventually would be OMD. And so that was an interesting thing. And then within 2 to 3 years, I was elevated to the national role that I was told I couldn't do from Chicago. And then that became a global role from New York. And then when I took the role within Publicis, with the headquarters being in Chicago, I had the option to move back to Chicago, and I decided to do that. And that probably was more about nostalgic-based reasons. I thought, well, this is, it's Starcom, it's Leo Burnett, etc., and we've got a bunch of kids, and they can be near their grandparents and all that stuff. But in retrospect, I really I love living here. I love we love living on the East Coast and working on the East Coast as well. So it's I think back to our questions, hindsight being 2020, I probably would have stayed out on the East Coast the second time because anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are in digital cut their teeth in the agency space. Do you think it still has the same? And obviously, we still have a lot of friends in the agency space and have enormous respect for them, putting all the disclaimers out. But do you feel like the agency space holds the same luster that it did once before? And if you were to give advice to someone now who maybe is trying to go, start a career in marketing or specifically within the digital side of marketing, which I think that line is, being there even a divide is very quickly disappearing. Would you still give them that advice, or where do you think that industry stands today?
Yeah, I'm somebody who, I have the agency DNA, and I've always loved the people and the model. And, back when I started at BBDO, that was when we were fully integrated. You had the media and the creative departments and the account, and the cultures were rich, and it was just amazing. And it's just evolved, in some cases, de-evolved over the years. And I've always been, being on the agency side for so long, was the recipient of a lot of that type of tone, where negativity and agencies are in the way, they're slow, they're expensive, they're political, and all that stuff. And I've never really, I took a lot of it, and I haven't really repeated a lot of that stuff. We do have a lot of friends still there in that capacity. Now, but I would say that the way things are shaped up today, and I give this advice to my own journey, my son Hunter's now at Nike. His focus was brand direct. And I think that with the tools that are available today to either start your own business or the brands that are bringing in a lot of those agency type resources and skills, that definitely is my first go-to, which is start out on your own. In college, like, I'm building all these micro businesses with my children. It's sort of a little bit of a private ploy just to stay close to them. I don't really care what the businesses do.
So I got a good playing off that, especially if you're trying to, you're giving this advice to your kids, okay, and you're keeping them close, which is great. You got an epic family on the side note. So we've got a question from someone on LinkedIn who said, what about advice to join an agency holding company versus independent agency? There's my take on that, but he'd also let you ask, Sean, would you advise differently there? So thanks for that question. I would say, the times have really changed. So when I was doing the independent agency thing in the mid 2000s, digital was still so new in many regards that actually the innovation didn't really sit in the big holding companies yet, because they don't really like to muck around with things that don't have scale and don't make mega bucks. And so there was a lot of really forward-thinking people that were at the independent level, and then they were starting to get bought up by the big holding companies. I feel like today the kinds of challenges that customers have are even more complex, and they're not such narrow things that are solved by a website or a mobile app or some very specific digital tactic. And it requires you to think, across so many different channels simultaneously, that some of these holding companies with their diverse capability sets become more and more interesting. That being said, I probably would say that if you do go to either of them, I wouldn't stick around that long. I think 4 to 5 years in the agency world is an incredibly good way to cut your teeth, work on an enormous amount of brands really quickly, work across a whole number of projects very quickly. But if you stay too long in agency land, you can get stuck and you can get pigeonholed, and it gets a little hard to escape the gravitational pull of agency land. If I was to share one of my own kind of oh shit moments, I think that that happened to me, and I had to work really hard to make that jump to being a CMO, whatever it was, 8 or 9 years ago, and I had to find someone to take a leap of faith on me, because you can really get pegged as the agency guy or gal.
Yeah, I think to the independent versus holding company, one of the things that I've seen is the benefits of the independent ones is usually they're private, and they're not subject to a tremendous amount of external scrutiny, where they can be a little bit more nimble and flexible and make faster decisions on investment, on culture, and on new solutions and services. And they also have been a little bit more acquisitive. Agencies are historically not good, any of them, at building things inside, but they're good at acquiring from the outside and then reformatting it inside. So I've seen I've never been part of an independent agency, but I've seen from the outside and marveled at a lot of their autonomy. So that would be my take.
I want to jump subjects. So some of the people that may be watching you right now on your own Facebook profile or through some of the other social profiles we're sharing, we're restreaming on about 9 different places right now. Apologies if we don't see all the questions. Sean, you might even want to take a peek at your phone, see if anyone's asking questions there. But you hear like, no. If you've got plausible deniability if you don't look. Smart, smart like you. You do a lot of different things that involve celebrities. You're involved as an advisor in companies. Actually, how you and I met, we were advisors on a celebrity influencer platform, whatever it was, 8 years ago or something at this point. I'd love to know, and I know, and you don't have to name names. You can describe them in generic terms. Have you ever, interesting people, celebrities with all the things that probably influence their personalities. Have you had any kind of oh shit moments that have, things gone wrong when dealing with very high profile people over the years?
Oh yeah. The one thing about celebrities is that you are attracted to them because maybe at the first outset because of the bright lights and the power principle and the fame and notoriety, and then you quickly realize that they are just people too. And first of all, they tend to be stranger people than normal. There's a real reason why they're in that 0.0, many zeros before the whole number percent of their talent. They're truly gifted. They're like these genetic freaks that have amazing gifts, and then you get close to that, and it becomes attractive, and you work with them, and then you realize that they're people too, and they have problems and issues, etc. So I think that there's been a few occasions where you've worked with them, you've gotten to know them, and I've met multiple friends, and I think the one reason I stay their friend and I maintain that long-term friendship and trust is that I've never, betrayed, like you said earlier, betrayed any secrets or any, and talk about any negativity, because I don't want anybody to do that about me. I'm not a celebrity certainly, but with them, they just have everybody asking them for things all day and looking to undermine them.
This is a really interesting area, in my opinion, where you can, share some good learnings. I certainly have a point of view on it. Getting to certain stages of your career and being able to, have friends who have been successful or people of influence or power is important in business. You need to be able to have those relationships. They can help you navigate challenging situations. They can help you facilitate deals. It's just part of, I think, leadership success. When you think about building those types of relationships, what kind of advice would you give people in terms of, fostering those kind of relationships? Because it's not the same. I hate to say it's not the same as, regular people. To try and build those relationships.
I love that question, because I'm actually, one of the things I mentioned about doing businesses with my children, and one of them with my daughter, I'm building a book out, sort of a coffee table type book called How to Network with Celebrities. And I've got a bunch of some fun facts and some fun stories that attribute to the facts. But I think that the number one thing that, in terms of dealing with people that are influential and of note, is to make sure that they realize that you have a genuine interest in working with them, doing something mutually productive, that you have something to trade as much as they do, that there's ability to bring something to the table, and that you're not just there to be fanboy, that you see what they represent, you see their platform, you see how they can, and then what is your personal specialty and vertical area that you can bring to that table. And in our respects, it's the access to brands. and what can we take with their immense talent and their platform and translate that into good for the sake of relevant commercialism. How can they be part of a brand's messaging, do a commercial, do a spot, et cetera, that can reflect back well on them, reflect on the brand, and do well, and make the star certainly some budget, some money as well. So I think that's taking that honest approach.
One thing I've noticed that is helpful. I feel like a lot of whether you're a very successful business person or you're an actor or something like that, people get very focused on what can I get from this person? They want to meet them. They're like, oh, if I meet this business person, I could pitch them on this idea, or I can ask them for this favor, and it's all about something that they want. And I'd say the advice I can give people is, you need to basically be able to not be poking at them to ask for something all the time. I can give a very specific example, and I think it's okay to say. I was at dinner one time. I have a connection back to Richard Branson. I was sitting with him at dinner, and I don't know him super well. I mean, I've known him a long time through my life, but we're not like we're best buddies or something. I was very happy to be sitting next to him, and there was literally like a queue of people like lining to talk to him. A guy's trying to have dinner, and you could see people almost in their mind like, okay, I've got to have 30 seconds. I'm going to try and say hi and then pitch him on some idea in like the first 30 seconds. I've met him, and it's like, this is my big moment. And I think that people really forget, and this to your point earlier, like sometimes people just want to be normal, honestly, or they are normal, and actually all this things that they have happened to them, a lot of their undoing, kind of changes things for them, and just having a little breathing room to just kind of be yourself and not feel like someone's constantly trying to take something from you, extract something from you. It earns trust. And although those relationships can be valuable in the future, at least in my personal case, I never asked for anything. When I did get something, it was because they felt comfortable doing it. I never had to go there. And I think people just in this, it's hard for a lot of people to not always feel like they can try and angle something out of you. People aren't stupid, especially very successful people. And even, they're used to this, it's not their first rodeo. Everyone's always trying to chisel something out of them. And I guess the advice would be, don't be that guy or gal,
I always say, when you meet a star, whatever that first question is that you want to ask them, don't ask them.
That's such good advice. I love that. That's so true. Whatever you were thinking, don't do that.
Because you can literally see it in their mind, their eyes roll in the back of their head. Okay, the comic actor, or do you want to get to know them as a human?
Yeah, so, yeah, that's cool. So jumping back on the kind of business side of it, I'd love to know, what was it that made you want to leave the safety of some very senior roles, to be honest, in the corporate world, and say like, okay, I'm ready to go and do my own thing now? Because it's scary. I mean, I didn't get this haircut by accident. It's like being an entrepreneur is a scary prospect, and a lot of people aren't ready for that. And I think other people would love to hear why you did that journey. Could have been you were drunk one night. I don't know, but maybe that and something else. But I'd love to know how you got there.
Yeah, I got to a point in my career where I realized that I loved to build. And I love to build cultures. I love to build businesses and business units. I'd love to acquire business development, etc. And I was also, again, I was on the media investment side. So everyone's very popular when you're a media buyer for obvious reasons. And but I also think I was a pretty good person about it and pretty fair dealing, etc. And I just got to a point in these positions where, frankly, it was, do you want me to reset? Am I getting
Oh, see, we're gonna coordinate this. You gotta warn me when you're doing that. Okay, it's back. At least you're back quick. Go ahead.
I got to a position where I just, I was getting a lot of press and a lot of accolades, etc. And some of it's maybe you deserve a portion of it, some not. I don't know. You get a lot of people that keep getting awards because they sit on top of a lot of billings and big business. And I thought, am I really? Let's just see if I'm anywhere near when they say you read your own press and what being in the.
So I'm not trying to be funny. So it sounds like you had a chip on your shoulder and you wanted to show everyone you could do it. Basically, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you start to think. Well, and there's a whole big soup of things. One is a personal challenge to say, could I replicate this on my own and not just on the backs of giants? Is there something that I could build something from that? And then I'm far more curious about. And I value more things that are built from the ground up than somebody that has just kind of come in and taken somebody else's thing and built it up a little bit further. Whatever size and scale, I think is much more impressive when you have taken something and built it from nothing. I mean, the most exciting part of my career to date has been it was my first business on my own was my agency the C4 group. When you start to build, it was a go-to-market strategy type formation, and when you start to hear that brand being repeated back to you from the marketplace, it's pretty exciting. You're like, whoa, this is actually something. I just came up with this in my kitchen, and now it's a product, and here it is being fed back. And then when you're also delving into a lot of the things that you and I have a lot of conversations on the operational aspects to it, stuff that I'm not good at, I don't really like. I can apply myself to it, but and they're critical. But beyond just the strategy element to it, when you start to build out a business full song versus just giving some hypothetical scenarios and theoretical biz dev bullshit ideas on stuff, it's like it becomes real. Now, at the same time, I have a family to support, and I had to do things that were real and that were revenue generating as well, and that didn't have a lot of time to mess around. So that was when I think to answer your question specifically, I had gotten to a point where it was no longer about building cultures and business units and I was becoming a little bit too further distance from the brands, and it just became more of a boardroom political haggle. I was dealing with a lot of people that their skill was in sword fighting. It wasn't on the product at hand. And I just thought, life's short. God bless. I got to move on. I want to be happy, and I want to deploy three things, which, what am I good at? What do I have a passion for, and where is there a business? And let's see if I can build out some things to do that. I've been on my own now for 10 years, which is an amazing thought. Time really does fly. And, there's been some tremendous, swings, everything you read about being on your own that Freddie, and wild swings, but it's all yours. You own them. And even when the swings are down, and now we're in some tumultuous times, and we're learning a tremendous amount. I think guys like you and I and a lot of our fellow chameleons and people, my partners in the room, etc., we look at this time as a wet cement opportunity to build to then launch further into the future. We don't look at this time as a lot of hand wringing. It's bad and it's down. Everyone's down everywhere. I'm down. Everybody's down. But at the same time, if you look at this, and I've had some experience on how to deal with these cycles, you see the opportunity. You don't sit there and just sort of wallow in the depths. You see the rebound coming. So that's what I'm excited about.
Totally random question. C4 is also an explosive, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, but the C in your case was all about different types of communication, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's funny. The unfortunate answer to that is I originally had words that comprised 4 C's, and then I forgot what they were, and then I came up with like 8 C's, and then I was just...
Well, thank God you were in charge of a communications company that specialized in doing messaging for people.
Yeah.
I'm wondering at least what percentage of your web traffic on that site was for people trying to buy explosives. And by the way, I can't talk crap about companies. I thought Chameleon Collective was the coolest name ever until I realized only about 80% of people could spell chameleon without having to look it up somehow. So, what are you going to do?
It's a filter. And, I did develop a side business on explosives that kept revenue flowing.
It's where the real money came from. Sean Finnegan, arms dealer.
Right.
Well, Sean, this is great. I appreciate you finding some time to chat with me and catch up. I've always found you a fascinating guy. I know other people do as well. And it's nice to talk about some of the things that maybe you don't always talk about there and share some of your kind of oh shit moments. You handled our tech issues well. That was good. Ran through this quickly. Although I probably could have handled 30 minutes of you in total pixelation and still been pretty amused. So, and just some final thoughts for everyone that's on the stream. First off, thank you for watching. If you haven't followed us already, visit us at oshipshow.com. Follow us on Instagram on oshipshow. Twitter at oshipshow, Facebook at oshipshow, or if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me at linkedin.com/in/Freddie Laker. Thank you again for all the questions that were submitted. Thank you again for your time today. I hope you had a good time, and we certainly had a good time hosting you, and we will see you in the next couple of weeks when we host the next OSHIP show. Thank you for your time.